Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My good friends, students, learners, and teachers. Today we will move forward with the planning cycle or project planning cycle in Pakistan. And if we recall, we discussed the two fundamental documents regarding the feasibility study and then the project proposal, which was termed as PC2 and PC1 in the public sector. Once the project is administratively approved and the administrative approval is accorded by the respective ministry, then the project team is authorized to start the project. So that is the baseline and fundamental document and fundamental principle that once the project is approved by the relevant forum, and we discuss the different forums like we have at the departmental level, we have the DDWP, which is also called Departmental Subcommittee, DSC, and then we have the CDWP for projects which are in excess of 120 million, and it goes up to about 2 billion. And then we have the projects which are in excess of the amount of 2 billion, then it goes to the PECNIC, which is the Executive Committee of National Economic Council, and which has got no upper limit. And certainly in the provinces, we have the PDWP for the Provincial Development Working Party, and the ADP projects of the provinces are approved in the PDWP and DWP, and in the central PSDP projects, they are approved in the CDWP and ECNIC, and so on. We discussed that the project identification is done through the PC2 and the project selection and formulation. To be more correct, the formulation is done through the PC1. So before starting the next two very important documents, I will recite a few verses from the Holy Quran, and then we will start. Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alif lam mim. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. Ameen. In this project management lecture series, we are today going to the 23rd lecture, and that is about the project monitoring, closing, and the performance analysis after the closing of project, which is normally done in the annual basis. So this is the cycle which we discussed last time, that we start with the identification to the PC2, and then we go for formulating of the project proposal, which is PC1, and once the project is then going to the appraisal process by the various forums, and once the project is approved administratively, then the project authorization is issued, and then we go to the implementation stage. In the implementation stage, we develop the work plan and cash plan on annual basis based on the annual allocation under the PSDP or ADP, which is the commitment from the government for releases of the funds during the financial year. And we keep that amount in mind, and then we develop the work plan and cash plan. And once the project is being executed, then we have the monitoring and controls by the monitoring and evaluation department of the sponsor agency or sponsor department. And at the same time, we have the monitoring and evaluation from the project wing of the Planning Commission. So we have two types of proformas used, which is PC3A and PC3B. PC3A is used on annual basis or annual reports during the currency of project, and PC3B is the monthly report, which is required to be submitted through the project management, project monitoring and evaluation system, PMES, of the Planning Commission now online, but we will discuss the formats of these reports. And once the project is completed successfully, then we have to submit the project closing report or project completion report, and this is normally done through the PC4. And to evaluate the project on annual basis, that whether the project has been able to achieve the annual uh, outcomes and impacts, and this is referring to the result-based monitoring, that soon after the completion of the project, we will have some outputs, and then within 1 year and 2 years and so on, maybe for 5 years, we continue to gauge the actual outcomes of the project, and then we compare it with the uh, envisaged and so on. So this is a document which is normally submitted for the projects which are completed, and after 1 year, this PC5 or annual performance post-evaluation of the project is done. So this is giving us a complete picture of how these project management cycle or project cycle is followed in the public sector. We discussed this, and today we will mostly show the documents, because we don't have any formal presentation, but certainly this document would help you to okay, so we start with the PC3A and PC3B. This is, for instance, the PC3 document, and which we normally have different kinds of, for example, if I just go back to the uh, PC3B, and then we have, for example, uh, this is a PC3 in which a small project has been given, and these are different questions, and normally this is done on annual basis, and this particular PC3 pro forma is giving us the details about the annual performance of the project. And if I just go back to further details, we can see, yes, this is, I think, yes, this is a PC3 form of typical projects, which is the for development of annual targets and progress reporting. And this is showing us the, for example, what is the name of the project, what is the approved cost of the project, and then what is the expenditure up to the end of last financial year, what is actual and what is accrued. Accrued, normally we take those expenses also into account, which has been committed but in process, and we want to give a picture that how we will be able to spend the money. And then we also see the PSDP location for the current year, and then annual work plan, that under different items of work, which were the target of the current year and the actual achievement. So this is, we give the under 5, and under 6 we also give the quarterly work plan, that for instance, what was the target in the first quarter, what was the second and the third, and what were the real achievement. And similar, we also give the cash plan of the project. Then we also give the output indicators, that to be determined by the project director, the basis of indicators given in the PC1, that what are the different indicators which have been achieved. So normally, if we go to the, I think this is very common things, and normally this report has to be submitted online now on the 1st July of the next financial year. So if we are going to submit the PC3A for the current year, that is 2019 and 20, then it will be submitted next year, this year by 1st of July. And that will be the annual report of the annual monitoring report of the project. Uh, okay, so we have, for example, this is a project where we have a PC3 document for which this is the PC3 document which has been prepared for one of the project, and this just gives us, for example, if we go to the source of financing, approved cost, and then uh, financial progress and all these. So all these information are normally given physical scope of the project as per PC1 and its achievement and so on. So this is giving us progress about the project on annual basis. So similarly, we have the other project, for example, if I just go to show you the this is yes, another document which we use. This is PC3 B form, which is used on the monthly basis, and I'll share this with you, that how do we use this for so PC3B. And if I just go back to share, maybe I can get, yes, PC4, PC3, and we can go for uh, yes, this is another document which is monthly reports, and this is showing you, if you just look at this, this is showing you the physical progress and financial progress, and then what are the bottlenecks in the project, and these bottlenecks have been quantified or classified in the terms of ban on recruitment, delay in consultant appointments, which are the reasons for the delays of the project, lack of coordination between the federal and provincial governments, land acquisition, turnover, concept and design problem, delay in release of funds, land order, management capacity, non-existence of project management unit, intra-departmental problems, procurement problems, contractor problems, and any other problem which you feel appropriate. So we give this report on monthly basis on the project management monitoring and evaluation system of the Planning Commission for all the projects. And for these projects, normally the codes have been assigned to the project directors, and the project director are then uh, submitting their reports on monthly basis. On 5th of every next month, they have to submit their monthly report of the project. So in this way, the project monitoring and evaluation team of the sponsor department keeps on tracking of the record on monthly and quarterly basis, and to mainly look for three or four major things. The first, they would like to see the physical progress of the different items of the PC1, and the second is the financial progress, that how the financial allocations under each head of account or head of PC1 or item has been respected and has been followed. And third, they would like to see that if there is any change in the scope, both financial and physical, they would like to see the reason. And if at some time, point in time, they need that the project needs revision and the scope variation or cost or time variation is very large, then they may suggest the execution agency to revise the project in time. And the thirdly or fourthly, they would like to see the major bottlenecks and how the sponsoring agency or monitoring agency can help the department, the execution agency to solve that problem. And there is a big list of problems which normally arise at the projects, and the monitoring evaluation committee and the university and other stakeholders would try to solve these problems. So this is keeping on. An annual report is then compiled to see that what are the different achievements under each head of accounts, both physically and financially. And certainly, these are compared with the financial planning of the PC1. One of the common problem we have seen is either the release problem in some ministries, or most of the time the capacity of the project managers, the contractors which they select, the consultants, and normally these lead to delay in the projects. So these are some of the major reasons. Now, once the project is completed successfully and it is ready to operation, then we are supposed to do two fundamental things, or three very basic steps. Number one, that the contract closing administration or the closing of the project is very important, in which we normally want to see that all the contracts have been closed successfully, number one. Number two, all the liabilities of the contractors have been fulfilled. Number three, all the deliverables of the projects have been acquired and have been tested and accepted by the client. Number four, if there is any dispute in the project, it is amicably resolved and there is no dispute, no pending liability in the project. If there is any litigation, then certainly that would may extend the project. And if there is any need to revise the project in the sense that the project has been extended in scope or art in cost, then certainly we would initiate the revised PC1, and certainly the PC4 would be submitted after the completion of the project and revision of the PC1. Second very important thing is that any amount which is unspent in the project must be immediately returned to the ministry, to the Higher Education Commission in our case, because any unspent amount cannot be retained by the university or client or the executing agency. This is very important, that once you submit the PC4, you have to submit all the bank accounts, the project accounts, and each and everything which you have done under different headers of account, the statements, the bank statement, reconciliations. And finally, the amount which remain unspent should be immediately transferred to the sponsoring agency, in our case, Higher Education Commission. So this is very important because this is public money, and any retention of the public money for no use is not acceptable in the government, and it must be very immediately shifted back to the government. I'll share with you the PC4. This is a PC4 which we submitted in the start of this year, and unfortunately this project, which was supposed to be completed in 2015, and then it was extended, I think, for another 2 years up to 2017 or something like that. I don't remember exactly. It will be given. And unfortunately, this PC4 kept pending for almost 2 years. And then there was a very huge protest and huge push from the Planning Commission and from the Higher Education Commission. So Alhamdulillah, I followed my staff and we completed this project, because this project was a bit old project, the first project of the Karakoram International University. So there were a lot of reconciliation issues because at that time we had the manual ledger system, so the ledgers were not available. The people to reconcile the figures were not conversant with the project history and so on. But anyhow, Alhamdulillah, I'm grateful to my team that they kept on exploring, and finally we submitted the PC4. Now the project, which was basically under the name of establishment of Karakoram International University, northern area, which is now called Gilgit-Baltistan, but at that time the title was Northern Areas. And this project was basically revised. We will get the history. This was initially, the project started in 2001. I don't know what is the exact duration, but certainly this was later on revised. The initial cost was 400 million. The revised cost was something 649 million. So if just to give an overview that how do we process the project, the name of the establishment of the Karakoram International University, and this was approved soon after the government decided to establish a university in the northern areas, now Gilgit-Baltistan, and then the University Order 2002 ordinance was issued by the then uh, President of uh, Pakistan, General Pervez Musharraf, and the project was approved by the ECNIC for an amount of 400 million. So the history is given that it was originally approved in 2001 by ECNIC, and it was revised by the ECNIC in 2005. The original was started in 2002, and it was supposed to be completed in 2009, but it was then revised due to, and this was the time where there was a big turbulence in the sectarian clashes were high in the 2010, and it was really very difficult 9-10 to complete the project. So the project was revised in 2007, and then it was continuing for another 8 years. And again, we had a very big turmoil in the meanwhile for 2 to 3 or 4 years, which delayed the project's extension extensively. So the project, which was originally supposed to be completed by 30th June of 2012, was then completed by 30th June of 2015, and 3-year extension was given by the sponsoring agency or the principal accounting officer. So if you go to the column 8 or entry 8, we see that there was original cost was 400.792 million, and there was no fund exchange or loan component, and this was revised again for 649.72 million, and the actual expenditure of the project was something like 615 million. So there was a saving about 34 million, which ultimately the university surrendered, and the check was then sent back to the Higher Education Commission. The project account, there are different accounts. Only one saving account was opened on the 16th of February, and then account has been closed, and the check has been sent to the HEC. Now, this gives us the annual expenditure and releases. For example, if we just go to the, it gives a comprehensive story of the phasing, actual allocation and releases. For example, the project was initially phased in 2002 and 3, and a phase deep allocation was 20 million, and all of these 20 million was released, and against that the university expanded 13.853. So you can see from this figure that when the project was revised, which was supposed to be completed in 2008 and 9, it was then revised, and we have another releases of the project, and finally we got 597.397 million was the expenditure. This figure is actually having some problem, and we corrected this, but just I'm showing the template. It may not be correct at this stage, and we then revised this based on the observation of the HEC, and now the corrected document has been submitted. Now, within the physical target, we had different components of 250,882 square foot of area, which included the administration block, shopping mall, food department, food and agriculture department, business management department, hostel, 2 hostels, staff colony, houses, and all these guest house, VC house, canteen, conference hall, construction of internal roads, and all these have been completed, and the detail has been provided in the Annexure A. Furniture was another job. We procured the furniture as per the approved scope of work. Uh, the item number are not mentioned here. As a matter of fact, the quantity should have been mentioned in terms of number. But since here we don't have, but in the next years we have complete details. Similarly, there were some vehicles which were required to be procured, which were procured as per the PC1. There were some lab and office equipment. There were books and journal. So when we go to the item-wise plan and actual expenditure, we see that the civil work was 528 million, and actually we spent 477. And the reason was that the boundary wall couldn't complete due to the land order situation, and this unfortunately part of the project remained incomplete. Then we had the in other heads of account. If you see in the figures, we are almost within the PC1 estimate, and the project is covering all the. So the only shortfall in the expenditure is happening in the civil works, where we had the delay in the completion of boundary wall. Then we have the recurring cost. There was a recurring cost of the project, uh, staff salary and other things, which was met from the recurring grant of university. The achievements was, for example, at that time, we wanted to establish a campus, and there was the campus was established, and to provide higher education to the students of Gilgit-Baltistan at their doorsteps, and the so for 3,225. This was the time when the project was completed. Alhamdulillah, we now have about 6,000 plus students in KIU. So far about 3,200 and have been graduated, but certainly this figure is now more than 6,000. So according to KIU charter, to serve as so these are the objectives, and the details of achievements of these objectives are given under different. And under 16, we have the area-wise income from services and revenue generation. So there are income from students' admissions, semester fee, hostel fee, and other things. And this is about 25% of the university budget now. So it's almost increased now since I have assumed the charge of Vice Chancellor in last 2 years. We have increased this by at least something like the fee revenue, alhamdulillah, has been doubled. It's about now making a good 30 to 35% of the total university revenue. The result-based monitoring indicators, which were set in the beginning, for example, we had the output of the construction of blocks and other infrastructure, and baseline indicator that we had 400 enrollment in the beginning, and once the project was completed, and now we have 4,000. So almost 10 times enrollment was increased with the completion of this project. So improved literacy, rural-urban imbalance or disparity was removed, gender balance and parity index was improved, and poverty eradication and elevation. So these were some of the targets. There were history of the project directors. For example, Mr. Darwish started, and there was Munir Hussain, and then Shabir, and then Qayyum Ali Shah, and then he was followed by Engineer Shabir, who is continuing to be the project director or project manager till date. So we have the responsibility and ownership of asset. This has been acquired by the Karakoram International University, and the details are given. Now the impact of the project, financial impacts have been given, that how it created more opportunity of employment and more opportunity of social and economic development of the area. And in economic development, we try to see that how the economy has created the impact on the student and their livelihood. And then the technological impact, that how the new technologies, new departments have increased the e-library. Another development, the social socio-economic development, on the education, that how the education has helped in the health, employment, area development, environmental, and mechanism of for sustainability of activities after completion, infrastructure of university, furniture, vehicle, lab equipment. So all these things have been incorporated into the project. That what are the achievements of this project? So the financial debt present value, all these have not been done. It can be done, as we shared last time in the project of the agriculture department of KP, in which the net present value. But I think at this stage we can determine this net present value of the project in terms of investment and revenue. There are some issues which the project faced. For example, the issues of electricity and water, the harsh climate, the attitude of the contractors and consultant, which certainly had a very tough time for the university. So there were cut and paste of design also. Land order situation which remained highly turbulent during the project time period, unfortunately. From 2005 onwards, a sectarian outreach in the Gilgit-Baltistan created a lot of line order situation, and this continued for a very long time, and then it had a repeat episode in the 2010. So for almost 5 to 6 years, the project remained highly affected by the line order situation in the Gilgit-Baltistan. And then we had also an earthquake in the area. When we had the Kashmir earthquake in 2005, since the Karakoram highway is the main artery to connect the Gilgit-Baltistan with the rest of the country, so therefore we had a lot of issues with the accessibility and the access, which created certainly a lot of problem for access of the people, human resource project, and all these. There was no planning and development department in the university, and unfortunately, even today, the planning and development department in KIU is not very strong. Though I have tried to improve the capacity, but unfortunately, there is very limited capacity with the existing people. But certainly, I'm trying to improve their capacity. There was a land dispute, and this dispute unfortunately remained for a very long time. That the village adjacent to the normal university, which is called normal, they raised the question of about the title of university, and this remained a very long issue, and ultimately the boundary wall was not allowed to construct, and which is still not constructed. However, with the blessings of Allah, when I joined in 2018, I had a very strong advocacy with the local people, and we tried to convince them that at least the title of the university, which is already the land is there. So they conditionally allowed us to start the new project of the Faculty of Engineering. But certainly this would remain a dispute, and we are trying to resolve it, though it is partially resolved at the moment. Then the decision making was also an issue. The committee and the people since the law and order situation, at the same time their expertise in managing the projects and the lack of expertise definitely created delays in the decision making, and this further delayed the projects, and the project time was wasted. So so we have mentioned all the lessons learned. For example, the identification of the project was rightly done. Then what were the lessons during the preparation? What were the issues? Then the approval process was the project financing. If there is any issue in the financing, then. But I think the major issue we faced in this project was mostly in the implementation, and that was mainly due to the line order situation in the 2005 to 2010, and secondly, lack of capacity with the university to deal with the project. The future planning and implementation of similar projects We have strengthened the work department. We are trying to improve the planning and development directorate, and then we are trying to also improve the decision-making process. And with my present strength, certainly I have tried to further improve the university capacity uh, in improving the project management and planning. So this is all about the PC4, and then we have a lot of uh, annexures, which, for example, I'll just go to show you. This is basically the completion certificate that the project has been completed, the civil works. These are the details of the expenditure on the civil work. And then we have the furniture, different furniture which we have procured, and the dates have been given since 2002 to the 2005. And each and every component has been given with the price. And this is one of the most difficult part of the project, that you have to maintain each and every piece of information in the project for preparation of the PC4. Then apart from furniture, certainly we had the other things like the equipment, we had the vehicles, and all these were provided in the PC4. These are the vehicles. 9 vehicles were procured in this project, and all these were procured according to the approved cost in the PC1. Rather, there were some savings also. So this just gives you the detail of the procurement of vehicles. So apart from this, we have annexures for other. This was provided in the project document. So this was all about the completion report of uh, the project of the establishment of Karakoram University in the northern areas, which was originally approved in 2001-2, but it was required to be completed in 2007-8, but unfortunately due to the land order situation in Gilgit-Baltistan in 2009-10, we wasted a lot of time, and then it was revised in 2009 to be completed in 2013. But however, again, we had the sectarian issues and clashes, and this again delayed the project for 2 years, and the project was ultimately completed in 2015. So this is the entire story of the project. Then the project, once the project is completed, the Planning Commission would also like to see that whether the project objectives and outcomes have been achieved or not, and the outcomes and the targets which have of the impacts which have been set. So the PC5 is normally used for such kind of projects, and I'll share with you one of the PC5 of such kind of projects, which was submitted by one of the department. This is which I downloaded from the net, but certainly it gives a very good detail of the PC5. This the project is basically establishment of non-destructive testing facilities of CWHR for research, assessment, evaluation of concrete structure. So this is basically Council of uh, Housing and Works and Housing Research, and there was a project of non-destructive testing, and the PC1 target was, so the objective and scope of the project and what the project was achieved. So they established the facility for non-destructive testing in the Council of Works and Housing Research. An existing laboratory of sea bearing this was physically upgraded by making addition and alteration of high-tech NDT laboratory. About 14 new major equipment were procured for the NDT. NDT stands for non-destructive testing. So this was about the facilities. All these facilities have been given, which have been. The second target was to conduct research on structural adequacy and durability of building, bridges, and other civil engineering structure. So this conducted 22 consultancies by the project in 1 year by the facility for different kind of structures, including bridges, flyovers, building culverts, etc. The third objective was to provide service to the construction industry. An amount of approximately 2.682 million was generated by conducted non-destructive testing consultancies for various organizations since February 2008. The fourth target was to extend the research facilities to the university for postgraduate and postdoctoral research in the field of non-destructive testing. And for this, the facility is basically located at Karachi. So this, the council then had collaboration with the INED University of Engineering and Technology, Mehran University, and Sir Said University, which is a private sector university. And approximately 50 students have availed the facility for research. Similarly, the different uh, uh, actual and recurring cost of the project, for example, in the PC1 estimated was 50,000 for repair of equipment, but it was about 70,000, and actual which was incurred is 97,000. So it gives us the various estimates about the recurring cost of various components which were given in the PC1 and now the actual. Similarly, the planned and actual manpower employed, for example, the principal research officer in which was the project director was available. The senior research officer was not available, and research engineers were hired. Similarly, the various people who have been appointed, and some of them might be in the process. So 4 number daily wages workers were hired for the project, and after the completion of the project, they have been continued as a daily wage workers for maintenance of existing non-DT equipments and for the field work on NDT, R&D consultancy works and commercial. Their salaries are being paid by the NDT consultancy head. So the consultancy head, the salary is being paid from the revenue of the center, research center, or the non-destructive research center. This is the plain and actual output that new equipment were that 18 number new equipment was, and this so it gives us the PC1 estimate and actual achievements. So headwise, similarly the project income which was supposed to be coming from different so in 2009 the project was completed, and then we had the revenue almost 2.682 has been by the project 2012 against the estimate of 0.9 million, which is quite comfortable. And then the plan and actual benefits to the economy in terms of employment, in terms of social benefits, all these have been given. And then plan and actual cost, marketing mechanism, arrangement for maintenance of building and equipment. So these have been given. Then whether output targets are invested have been achieved. For this, the next year has been given in some details. The lesson learned, which were already given in the PC4, are further detailed here that the operation of the project faced a number of bottlenecks in the initial stage. As mentioned, however, on the delegation, full administrative and financial authority, the principal investigator to function as a project director, the impediments faced were reduced. In the maintenance issue, after completion of projects have been discussed the marketing issues, the management, any change which is required in the project, what are the suggestions for improvement of this project in future. So there are some suggestions given by the, and then, so this was a project which was submitted by the project director, who is also the principal investigator, a research officer, principal research officer of the project, non-destructive testing of CWHR. In the main, so you see that the Planning Commission was basically interested to see that how the various objectives and outcomes which were committed in the project PC1 have been achieved after 1 year, and maybe some of the objective cannot be achieved for 1 year or 2 years. So this may continue for next 4 to 5 years to see that whether the project have been able to achieve their targets and create the outcome and the effects which have been envisaged in the PC1 on basis of the result-based monitoring. So this was all about the PC PC3, PC4, and PC5. And just to repeat again that the PC3 is the monitoring and evaluation reports for monthly and annual periods. And then we have the completion report, which is the PC4, and then we have the PC5, which is the annual performance report of the completion of the project or post completion evaluation. And with this, the project cycle is completed, and the project starts its benefit to the society, to the university, to the institution. And then certainly the responsibility of the project team is, or the client is, to make use of the benefits of the projects. Now, unfortunately, my experience says, and I have observed, that the projects once completed and given to the clients and given to the end users are not properly monitored for the post-project evaluation. And the government money is spent in billions on very sensitive projects, very important projects, mostly research projects. I've seen that they spend a very huge investment in the procurement of equipment and training of the human resource, the capacity building, their higher studies. But by the end of the day, due to the lack of this post-project evaluation practice in our country, I see a lot of waste of the resources, and I've seen that a big number of the researchers and a big number of the appointed people are not working to give. So my recommendation to the Planning Commission would be that we should develop a mechanism in which a regular PC5 is collected from the departments to see that how these projects are implemented after completion, and the targets which are envisaged in the PC1 should be monitored at least for 5 years, so that the client is making use of all the resources which have been developed, because we have always a very shortage of the resources, and unfortunately the huge investment we do in the projects is not giving the premium and the return to the society. So I think the present government is also having high emphasis on the post-project evaluation. In the public sector, unfortunately, this is not done in a very regular fashion. But in private sector, I have seen in the NGOs and INGOs that they have a very strong post-project evaluation processes in which they normally engage the services of different stakeholders, different consultants, maybe international consultants, to see that the project has achieved the envisaged targets as given in the PC1. So I think to save the money of the projects and have a better return of the project, there is a need to revisit and see that whether the project has achieved the objectives, and if not, then what can be the suggestions to improve and to strengthen the processes which can lead to the achievement of the objectives of the project. So thank you very much. I think with this final lecture, the long series of the project management, which spanned over almost 22 or 23 lectures, has been completed. If you remember, we started with the basic fundamental definition of the project management, project life cycle, project processes, and what is the approach of the Project Management Institute of USA, PMI, and we discussed the PMBOK or PM, Project Management Body of Knowledge. And then we also discussed the feasibility of preparation of the project. And then we went to the discussion of the various knowledge areas, at least 9 knowledge areas we discussed. We couldn't discuss the stakeholder management in detail, but certainly it was covered in the human resource management. And then we had a couple of lectures on the importance of project management in the public sector, and there are various tools and methods which are being used for assessment of the project management in the public sector. So this completes the lecture series on the project management, and certainly it will be then followed by another series. And the next series will be the environmental design lecture series, mostly for the students of MS Environmental Design. And we will try to teach them some important subjects like fundamentals of environmental design, then the building evaluation techniques, and maybe environmental impact assessment. So 3 important subjects we will discuss inshallah, in the next phase. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, the project managers particularly who had been with us for this very long series of the project management lectures. Thank you very much and stay blessed.